what's the
All right, here we go. Another edition of the Elder Nerds episode. What the hell is this? 7?
I
8?
think so.
I don't know.
We're keeping track because I'm not.
I know.
We can't keep track of these things.
I know. We're busy. We got lives and shit. All right, so here we are. It's a Sunday night. It's another Sunday night. Because Friday I was on, just tired. Maybe we'll get Mike in on. I don't know. We'll try. But so what's up, Pat? You've been keeping. We'll talk about what's new in comics this week. It seemed to be an eventful week, and you wanted to bring up some stuff.
I didn't get to go to the store this week, but I read a couple of things. What did I read? Nothing really major this week. And mostly everything's revving up towards Secret Empire.
Right. And what do you think about that retailer, Marvel retailer thing on Friday about how diversity doesn't sell comics anymore?
I saw that.
I don't know. Like we were talking before, right? You have in Marvel, you have Spider-Man, then you've got, sort of Cap, Thor, Iron Man, and Daredevil. And then below them, you really don't have anybody else that sells comics. I mean, you have popular characters, but none that can carry their own book. So now you have...
Aren't they canceling a bunch of titles right now?
Yeah.
Yeah,
wackiness going on.
They've announced some titles are canceled. There's rumors more are coming down the pike. But they have canceled some low-selling titles like Hellcat. What was the other one, Pat? Like, I know Black Widow's coming to an end, but that was only planned for 12 issues.
Scarlet Witch has got to go, right?
Scarlet Witch is going, I think, or rumored to go.
What about those two, Fool Killer and, what was the other one? Solo? I don't even think anybody...
Oh, jeez.
I didn't even know these titles were still out.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've been trying for... Spider-Woman just got canceled.
Yeah, nobody was paying attention to that at all. After the pregnancy thing, people were like, I don't care.
Yeah, I just read up on that whole pregnancy thing. Like, the big mystery on who the father was, and then it turned out she had artificial insemination done. It was like, really? That had to be a mystery? That had to be played out?
Yeah.
It's like that's so stupid. I think, some people get pissed off at that and they drop the book. I don't know.
It doesn't make sense. I'm a superhero. I got a crazy life. I'm going to go out. I don't even have a job. I'm going to go out and get artificial insemination.
But, yeah, right? Exactly. Pete, though, I don't know if you saw what the retailer summit said. The guy was saying that artists don't sell books. And also because of the diversity, people are dropping it. What do you think of that when he says artists don't sell books? Being an artist yourself.
First of all, I didn't get a chance to read the full article. I skimmed it, and I don't know if I got a call or whatever distracted me. But who was the person they interviewed for the article? Who's making this big statement?
It was a guy who representative of Marvel. Hang on, let me bring it up. I never.
Cool, right?
Yeah, I never heard this.
I think so.
This
Yeah.
guy. I never heard of this guy either. He's not like Perlmutter or whatever.
Right.
He was somebody else. Let's see. What was his name? What is it? March 31st. But that's what he was saying. Like, it seems like Marvel has been saying that since they got burned by the Image guys. When they left.
Can I come in for this for a second?
Yeah.
Got burnt? Wait a minute.
Name your top-notch artist, your superstar artist today.
Today?
I don't know any John Burns or George Perez's today,
The last one I could think of, and I'm more of a fan of who the guy is according to reports than his work, but it would be somebody like Jim Lee.
Jim Lee doesn't work. He doesn't work very much.
Yeah, he does. He still puts out some comic work, but not on a regular basis.
Yes, granted, if Jim Lee did a book, it would sell. But he doesn't do it every month.
Yeah, I mean, but Jim Lee has also been in the business for 25 years now, 27 years.
Right. Well, you're just saying artists that could sell books. But maybe the guy is right. Maybe artists aren't selling books anymore because the books are beholden to the success of the movies. So maybe fans who are seeing the movies are coming to buy certain books because of that, as opposed to who's
But
drawing it. But he might be right.
but I
He
don't
might
get.
be
But
right.
see, I don't
Like
see that. I
I'm
mean,
thinking about my favorite
fans of
artist, like
movies.
David Ajah, Butch Guy. You think Butch Guy sells any comics to somebody besides me?
Not that I could think.
Just,
of. Not
just,
at the same time.
well, I know he's really popular with artists from High School of Art and Design and SVA and those art schools. He is damn good. But I
I
mean,
know he was.
But Pete, you were just
worldwide.
saying about fans from the movies coming to buy the books, but it's been proven time and time again that movie sales don't equal comic sales. So you can't, say that the books are beholden to the movies.
I have to tell you the truth. I have no idea. I'm just guessing because I don't. I mean, there are a lot of good artists out there, but I don't see anybody.
Yeah.
I don't see any. I don't see articles or anything. Anybody making a big deal out of artists the way they used to a couple of years ago.
Well, Well, I think the only big name artist I can name right off the top of the back that sells is Capullo, Greg Capullo. But that could be just because he's on Spider-Man. But he was pretty big when he was at Image in the late '90s, early 2000s.
The
And
last thing I heard he was doing was Batman. I thought he was on Batman.
I mean, Batman. I'm sorry, Batman. Yeah. I mean, is it because of he's on Batman that he's big, or is it like?
Yeah, I think he's okay, but I mean, they talk about him like, yeah, he's one of those 80s, 90s image artists. Like, remember when artists were, in the 90s that
Hold on a second.
Yeah.
I think it was Gary. You said that this guy is blaming the image artists that left Marvel for the failure of Marvel titles.
No, that was no. Well, the guy's name in the retailer thing is called David Gabriel. No, but it seems like ever since those Image guys left 25 years ago, Marvel has never been really emphasizing artists anymore as becoming superstars, because I think Marvel just didn't want to get burned again by having, this popularity of these six guys.
That's a long time, and
That's what I'm saying. That's a weird connection to make, to blame failing Marvel sales on artists that left like 25 years ago.
No, he's not blaming that. He's saying that, okay, these guys, with the X-Books turned these guys into superstars. They made Rob Liefeld a millionaire. And then, what they did after, they got to be that big? They left us high and dry and started their own company. Because we hyped them so much.
Marvel's a corporation. They're not a family. They're a business, and they'll cut anybody off.
I agree.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Big shit. Who cares how they feel?
But when those Image guys left, that hurt Marvel for just a little bit. And then look at Image now. No, what this guy is trying to say is that it's the characters that sell the books, not the artists. But now this guy is saying that all these diverse titles,
Artists, or is he talking about creators in general?
artists,
Okay.
not writers, because ever since Bendis came aboard, really it's been a writer-driven industry lately. When Bendis came aboard Marvel, because there was emphasis more on Matt Fraction,
Yeah.
Kelly Sue McConaughey, Bendis, Brubaker, those guys, and the artists seem to have taken a back seat. And this guy is saying that artists don't sell books anymore, but he's also saying diversity doesn't sell anymore. So what their plan is for 2018 is to go back to the way Marvel was with, Captain America is going to be Steve Rogers, Thor is going to be, Don Blake, the way the characters were created, and that drew a bunch of. The internet blew up on Facebook, at least on my timeline, Pete. I don't know about yours. Saying all
a couple things to say. One, it seems like Marvel keeps moving to different countries for finding artists. First it was the Italians, then it was the Brazilians, and you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, they're cheaper. Yeah.
Artist Alley is
Wait, hold on a second. The reason they jump to those countries is because it's cheaper to pay those artists.
Yeah.
Those artists bust their ass. They put out high quality work, and it costs a fraction of the price to hire them than to hire an American artist. Like the Brazilian artists, there's from what I understand, and this was from somebody in the industry, there's a studio of Brazilian artists out there that can all draw like one another if they need to. So if they hire one guy and then that guy falls behind, they can jump to the next dude and have him fill in. and that's why you see guys like Pablo Siqueira and a couple of other dudes whose names I can't remember that kind of have bounced in and out of Spider-Man, for example, a couple of years ago, back when I was still reading it regularly. They would the Brazilian artists were bouncing in and out of there, like kind of, picking up the slack for one another, and also the Indian artists and Filipino artists. All these guys put out very detailed work really fast on a fairly regular basis, and it costs like peanuts to pay them as opposed to somebody who's homegrown.
Yeah, sure.
I was gonna say, absolutely. And once they get sort of, I don't know, like they ask for more money or whatever, Marvel moves to a different country. So those guys never get a chance to get big. But even though some of them, like there's a Italian guy that's been drawing Spider-Man for a long time. Guess who movie I can?
Giuseppe Camaculi.
Oh yeah.
He came over.
Yes.
Yeah, he came over from Hellblazer from DC. He was on Hellblazer for a long time, and
doing some Shield secret group. I can't remember the damn name. There was some group of superheroes.
Warriors.
Secret Warriors, something along those lines. Wasn't he doing one of those?
I don't know. I know the guy's work. The artwork in his, I can't remember his name. He did the. Yeah, I wasn't crazy about that book, but I was going to mention Gary, the guy who's on Iron Man now, the Ironheart book, who's drawing Riri. I told you like 3 times the guy's terrific. I think he is.
He is. I've seen his work. He is terrific.
Something I want to throw in before I forget to mention it, jumping back a step. The guy who was talking about artists not selling books, and you noted that writers have gotten a bigger push to the forefront in terms of media attention over the last several years. I'm wondering if that coincides directly with the rise of popularity of their films, because these stories are getting translated into movies. Not so much the designs or what the artists provide. Like, these artists aren't creating anything. They're just hands. I hate to say it, but they're taking something written and then they're translating it visually. But that's not getting it made into a movie. It's the story that's being translated, right? I mean, if that makes any sense.
It does, but I kind of disagree a little bit. I mean, it is still the way the characters look, the way their powers are interpreted. That's all from the visual.
They seem to stick closer to the source material in the story than the visual material in the story. Like the X-Men costumes don't look the same on paper as they do on film.
Oh yeah, of course.
Iron Man's armor is pretty close, but Iron Man is one of those characters like Batman where as long as the armor kind of has the same theme.
Yeah, the armor keeps evolving, yeah.
Right, he can have the anime look, he can have the skin tight look, he can have the bulky look, whatever.
I will say one thing.
But there still is that gold and red, gold and crimson look. What was that?
I'll say Zack Snyder likes to lift things right off that panel.
Yeah, he does when he does his director. But I know what Pete was saying, true. But even with Iron Man, as long as they keep that gold and crimson, skin to Iron Man, that's what people think of when you think of Iron Man.
It's right. It's very, very sort of. They have so. It's still interesting that.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hey, Mike Delapine has joined us.
Hey, no, not really, because I'm starting the second half of my shift.
Ah, okay. Yeah, we got a little late start today. In fact, we've only been on the air for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, I would say.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, 15 minutes. So yeah, I figured your break ended at 8. That's why I didn't call you.
Yeah.
But we'll talk next week. We're Pat and I came up with this. Pat did about this big subject we want to talk about too much pop culture. So we'll save that for next week, maybe Friday.
That's a good one. I think I'd want to talk about that. But
yeah, so let's do it on a Friday night when Mike is off and we're all free and we could talk for however until one of us drops.
Yeah. It would be cool if we can get together and do something live at Comic-Con.
That's a good idea.
It'd be cool if we could get tickets.
Well,
yeah, the way they changed the process now. Yeah. All right, Mike. We'll talk to you Friday.
All right, I'll talk to y'all later.
Peace.
Later, bud.
All right.
Also, Pete, told Gary 2 weeks before the Wonder Woman movie comes out, I want us to do a Wonder Woman show, and my topic is Wonder Woman, the most important character nobody cares about.
Yeah, I know.
The most important character or female character?
No, the most.
No, she's like an icon, and nobody gives a shit about her.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I mean, well, yeah. Let's not start going off on that, but I totally agree with Pat's.
Think about that 2 weeks before the movie. We're going to go on about how we, as fanboys growing up, and blah blah blah, and how she's been treated in the comics, and her importance to the comics. But let's get back to this one. Artists don't sell books.
Yeah, and he's also, but the main thing is he's saying diversity doesn't sell books, so he thinks all these women titles and minority titles.
I've been wanting to do for like 3 weeks. Hey, let me do it.
All right.
Okay, Marvel, and I'm not disagreeing. This has hurt the books to a certain extent. Marvel went from Secret War, which was supposed to be, it was a big line-wide event, and it was supposed to be over at a certain time, and they were relaunching their whole line. Secret War went over to, and the books came out 2 months before the end of Secret War. People were like, what's going on? Like, oh, spoilers, all this kind of thing.
Mhm.
Then they went right into Civil War 2 to go into the movie, with Cap's movie, which, then again, another huge event. And that was supposed to end, and then they were going to relaunch their line again. So that was 2 relaunches of their whole line within a year. And Civil War went overdue 2 months too. And then right now we're in Monsters Unleashed, which has, Godzilla kaiju monsters fall from the sky destroying Earth. So all hands on deck again. Like, there's no chance to breathe with this. The world is
It looks like Marvel or whoever this guy. I don't know if this guy's connected directly to Marvel. Is he the one that made the article?
David Gabriel is the senior vice president of sales and marketing.
So it looks like he's just coming up with an excuse to distract from the fact that Marvel itself is the reason their books aren't selling. They're trying to blame the workers for what the bosses are making happen, because the artists and the writers. Well, maybe the writers can take a little heat for dropping sales because they're writing these ridiculous stories, but they could also be that they're being forced to write these mega crossover things to get a sales bump at the insistence of some of the executives. You know what I mean?
Well, that's another thing I want to bring up again. Remember that is that the event economy, comics are driven by the event economy. They just announced DC's big summer event, which is like, I don't know, dark metal or some weird thing. I don't know, Batman.
Oh boy, I didn't hear that yet.
We used to get an event like once every few years, whatever, blah blah blah, and then
when it was an actual event. Now it's not an event; it's a weekly occurrence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm numb. I'm just numb from some of these things. And then somebody put it. I read in an article. I don't know where it was. A few years ago, said these were the threats the Justice League and the Avengers used to take care of. But now it's the whole line of, now it's everybody in DC versus whatever, and everybody in Marvel versus whatever. So what's the point of the Avengers and Justice League?
Exactly, yeah.
Right. Those big mega teams don't matter because when these massive events happen, every single character in existence has to get involved. They become one giant team.
Right.
Yeah.
And what's the point?
Like
what's the
Monsters
point of the
Unleashed now,
And all
you
this-
had Inhumans versus X-Men. Right in the middle of it, you write Monsters Unleashed, and they're fighting monsters together. People are like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah, well, wasn't it? Can't you trace it back to like maybe 2000 or something? There was like the beginning of the first successful, well, not the first, but one of the bigger successful major crossover events. And I don't know if it was Civil War or something that was before Civil War, but do you know what I mean? Like somewhere going back.
I remember Civil War being really big, and I also remember No Man's Land being really big.
I don't even,
Yes, yeah, No Man's Land and
No Man's
Batman.
Land was Batman. Batman was one of the first lines to have a line. It was just the back books, and then every year they had like Contagion, No Man's Land, War Games. There was a couple other ones, but then that just. But so then it was
Nightfall.
like DC had an event and Batman had an event, and you're like, how many events can I get? No.
I remember it was when I guess back in the 80s and 90s, like Crisis on Infinite Earth was a major event for me as a comic reader because it was pretty unprecedented at the time. And they got like the best artists for it. They got George Perez, who could draw every, what was that? that splash page, I don't know, somewhere in the middle of the series where you had like almost every character in DC in this room. I don't know how.
Every cover was gorgeous.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was just mind-boggling. The level of detail was just absolutely mind-boggling.
And like you said, he drew everybody in the DC universe. He drew best
Yeah.
artist. You know, like it was amazing.
But you
Yeah,
forget
it-
the main
it-
point of that event was to reboot the entire DC universe,
Right,
which they
right.
somehow changed their mind halfway through it, where it was everything was supposed to start over at zero, or they were going to figure out continuity between all the alternate Earths. So there was a reason for that event, and then came Secret Wars, which was basically just a reel to sell toys. But then when you had all
Right.
those X-Men events like Apocalypse. What's the one that followed? What's the other one? Onslaught. All those. Then
Reavers,
and then they started spreading out into other titles, Legends. That's the reason why. Then there was no reason to have these big events because it wasn't like, it was just an event for the sake of an event. Other than like rebooting an entire company line.
The only reason they do it is for sales. Right?
They do it
It's
for
to get a
sales,
spike.
yeah, because sales spike.
Fucking sale.
But now in the
It's
last
like
couple
to
of
get
years.
paid to buy, Ant-Man or whatever. I buy 7 comics a week instead of 4.
Yes, of course it was for sales, but now it looks like the last 2 reboots by Marvel, people are just finally
They're
admitting
done.
they're tired of it.
Well, because because there's no consequences.
Yes, exactly.
They mean nothing. They mean absolutely nothing. There's another event after an event because every event is supposed to break the internet and shatter the universe and reset the game and change the status quo and pick your catchphrase, and they never do shit because as soon as the event is over, you wait about a month or two, and comics and all the titles that were sucked into that event just go right back to normal as if nothing happened. There's no after effect of anything.
No, I think it's different, Pete. I think like the books, like I said, I just want a book. I just want a book that feels independent. It feels like the books are stuck into this event economy where like now's the build up to Secret Empire, and then you get the fallout of Secret Empire, and just as the fallout of Secret Empire, like you just said, okay, this is what Secret Empire did to Marvel Line. Oh no, we're building up to whatever it is. The next one.
But again, it doesn't. But still, the point is still the same. That it doesn't.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Whatever these events do, they really do nothing because the next event comes along and washes
But
it
the
away.
creative team doesn't get a chance to really
And-
bite
and
into that thing
these
and
are-
give you a book.
Yeah.
And these are almost guaranteed decisions made by executives, not by the creative team.
Well, they have that summit. I don't know what goes on those summits, but they have that summit. I don't know how long. Again, it's a big deal to get called to that.
Yeah, the Marvel Summit where they plan out the next couple of
Who was the one that
years.
he just got to go, and it was really surprising. I'm like, huh? Really? That's your first summit? I think you would have been there already. Was it Slot?
No, Slot's been going forever. Even Spider-Man has their own summit in a way because of all the Spider books now.
I could see that. I could see that kind of. I could see there being something going. Okay, all you guys, let's talk and having like like they used to have an editor for all the Bat books, so everybody gets on the same page. But I could see that.
Yeah, but this recent summit was.
by, my opinion comes from like articles from Wade and a couple of other people inside the industry who maybe kind of blew up the spot as they left Marvel or DC, talking about that like we said before in previous podcasts, that the accountants are making the big calls on what kind of books get put out. The number crunchers.
Oh, of course.
So it's like it's not. I mean, I can't guarantee it, but it feels like the non-creatives are dictating what the creatives have to do.
I
Like
don't
at-
know about that.
like
You
at
never hear
DC
about any
At
business
DC when they but you do catch little articles here and there. Like when DC did that. What was it in 2011? Was it New 52 they did in 2011?
Yeah.
I remember I was at a convention. I was at a MegaCon, selling books at a table, and there were a bunch of DC artists who literally got the word while they were there at the convention, like, "Hey, whatever you've been working on, stop." And now within the next 3 months, you have to get this amount of work done because we just decided we're going to go do X, Y, and Z. So they kind of got the rug pulled out for them. They didn't make any decisions. They were just given their marching orders.
Yeah, but
They
I
had
mean,
to-
yeah, I mean, you can, to me, decision making should be started editorial. That's why you get, that's one of the reasons.
Right, but I think it is purely driven by numbers first, then editorial.
You don't hear like somebody like Ike Perlmutter. You would think you would have heard his name messing with everything because he's notorious for that kind of thing, but you never do hear about it.
Or he could be just strong. He could be powerful enough just to keep his name out of people's mouths.
Yeah, I think he's the type of guy that definitely works behind the scenes on something like this.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I remember that too because I totally think that.
I don't even think they care. The numbers are so small now. Who gives a crap what Wonder Woman sells? She sells 38,000 copies. Captain America, 35,000 copies. Who gives you this?
But see, that's the whole point of this thing. They're saying, why are these numbers so low when you have so many diverse characters out there now? And this guy is saying diversity is actually hurting sales, not helping. Which
that's not true at all.
I don't think it's true at all.
I think that's total horseshit, and I think it's biased point of view, and it's spin. He's just trying to distract from the fact that the non-creatives who are really in charge are what's fucked up the Marvel line. Not diversity, not the artists. You can't blame the workers.
A number cruncher said, "Listen, I want a black 15-year-old Iron Man who's a girl." And I want a girl I want Thor to be a girl, and I want Captain America to be a Nazi.
Well, I don't think they were that specific. I think they said, you know what, just speculating. Obama, at the time Obama's president, Michelle Obama is really popular with women. Women they have the controlling dollar in the economy. They spend more in shops. We have to appeal to them. Let's get something going. I don't think he was that specific. Like, we need a black 15-year-old girl. I think maybe that part was left up to the creators, but they must have set out a decree that we need more stuff geared toward women. We want to bring in more.
Oh, I agree with that.
Readers.
Yeah.
We want to bring in Spanish readers. They apparently don't want to bring in Asian readers yet because there's no fucking Asian characters.
That's a whole topic I can get on. But
Well,
you're right. I think that's my other defense. Look at like I always say, that everybody's been saying comics are dying. I mean, you look at the sales numbers for everybody but Batman and Spider-Man, they're crap. So they could have said, we're having $1 billion movies. How come we can't sell, an Iron Man comic that's, in the 90s? They said, and they like you said, they got beaten over the head by the mainstream press and a lot of the comic press about diversity, and they said, well, what else? Why not try it? Right? What have we got to lose? What are we going to compete with Gary, Pete, and Pat? I mean, we already,
Well, I
they're
think
only buying 35,000 copies worth of Captain America, so they've done it. And I think Marvel, you look at Marvel's line, they really try to get the women. They had Scarlet Witch, Patsy Walker, Moon Girl, Sparrow Girl, Jean Grey's getting a book. Who else got a book? Gamora's getting a book. She's got a book. They really went heavy on that, and I can't blame them. Sales are just dropping.
yeah, sales are dropping in the direct market,
They're writing
but
shit stories. They're writing bad
no,
stories.
Pat. No, I don't think that's it. Pat, I think what you're saying is the sales of the direct market are dropping, but from all reports, and even though there's no hard numbers, everybody is saying it came out last year from Comic-Con that 48% of the people who read comics now are women, and supposedly women read more comics digitally than going into a comic store, which I could see in a way because a lot of comic stores are still very uninviting, but they put out all these titles and then they don't sell, and if they're still going by digital numbers, you think the digital numbers would keep these books afloat, but if they're canceling a whole slew of titles recently that are mostly of them are women-centric, like Black Widow, not Black Widow, Scarlet Witch, Fool Killer, Extraordinary X-Men ended, all new X-Men ended.
All the X-Men books are getting ended and they're being relaunched. X-Men Prime just came out.
Yeah, and they're bringing back Wolverine.
Female-centric books.
What?
I said, who's writing the books that were
female-centric?
Yeah,
a whole bunch of new writers.
Mix. Some are men, some are women. Like Captain Marvel has a female writer who's a New York Times best-selling author.
And Captain Marvel is not sold. She got relaunched as Captain Marvel. She's on a third series and she doesn't sell.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Personally, I never had any intention of reading Captain Marvel because to me, she's boring. I know she's got a lot of power and she was part of the Avengers, but she's boring. There's nothing to her, personality wise. Nothing attracts me to that character. Wonder Woman. You mentioned Wonder Woman, and one of the reasons that she's a character that you can always go back to is because she has a personality that was kind of established and then redefined and reestablished. Say with Kingdom Come, where they made her harder, tougher, more. They focused more on the Amazon warrior aspect, where she wasn't a shrinking violet, she wasn't a damsel in distress by any means. She could hold her own with Superman, the most powerful character they have, and so she was kind of like she was a definitive personality. These other characters, Hellcat, Black Widow, I don't know who they are as characters. I mean, we know what they do, but who are they? They're just their personalities change depending on who's ever writing them. There's no standard. We know Wolverine. We know what Wolverine is like because his personality has been maintained.
Oh, Wolverine's another one. Wolverine's a girl.
Well, Wolverine, right? Well, Wolverine's X-23 now. But before they quote unquote killed him and buried him in Adamantium, his personality was established and maintained. You know what I mean? The same thing with Thor. Even though Thor's, whether he sells or not, you know what Thor's supposed to be like, and either that appeals to you or it doesn't. But I don't know what Patsy Walker Hellcat is like. You know what I'm saying? They're not defined, so they're
really. I don't know. I thought who was writing it? Roger Stern. Roger Stern did a good job with her. Way back when Perez was drawing it, and then Byrne took over. But I mean, yeah, they're.
I really think that's what it comes down to. With female characters, they usually seem to be just a look and a power set, and there's no depth to it. They don't know the writer.
Well,
the writers never go any deeper. They just make a hot chick in a sexy looking outfit, and then to try and steer away from being accused of just making eye candy, they'll give her super strength or some sort of incredible, energy pulse. You know what I'm saying? But there's no personality there.
Okay, but I want to go back to what I said. Like, when you look at Marvel, right? Pete, when did you start reading? You start reading the early 80s?
Oof, God, maybe somewhere between 80 and 82.
Okay. When I started reading comics, Spider-Man was then number 1. Hulk was then number 2. And then it was Cap, Iron Man,
right.
Thor, and then, right below that was Daredevil. You know what I mean? That's not a lot of, titles that keep going through the years, you know what I mean? Even, name a male hero besides the ones I just named that Marvel has that's had a book for 10 years.
Oof. You mean a solo character?
Yeah, it's a solo title.
Oh God, how long was Moon Knight around?
No, not.
Had some run.
Well, different runs, but he's been continuous for a long
Right.
time. But I mean, you had the Thing in Marvel 2-in-1.
Right, when did that end?
That ran for almost 10 years. That ran for 8 years.
How long ago was those 10 years?
Oh, geez, that was from what, 72 to 82?
See, from 80 to
Wait,
today, what do we have?
I'm
Ghost
lost for a
Rider
second.
big, Deadpool maybe, but they came and went.
Well, no.
Ghost Rider was big in the 90s, Deadpool was big in the 90s.
Yeah.
Moon Knight had a decent
Wait,
run.
Cable.
I'm lost for a second. What does this have to do with?
I'm saying that Marvel really doesn't have a lot of characters that run a long time. You've got your gold standard with Spider-Man, and then you have your blue chips with, say, Hulk, Thor, Iron Man, Cap, Daredevil. And,
Punisher is another one that ran for a long time.
Right. But Punisher fizzles out, and then, you wait a couple years,
He has ebbs and flows, but the thing is well, my point was those characters, whether they've stayed or not, however long they've stayed, the character because it's clearly defined pretty early on.
Oh,
With the
absolutely.
female characters, they don't put that much time and effort into defining the female characters further than, and this is just my opinion, but further than the costume and the power set. That's all they are.
Okay, but I'm saying that even within Marvel, even within all those great characters, even with an audience that loves those characters, it's hard to keep a book going.
Mhm.
Yes, but it seems like Marvel is canceling a lot of titles very quick, even with low sales numbers, which I understand. But it's like, but like Pete said, if you don't, you can't give a book just 8 issues to define a character. I mean, for all of Wolverine's popularity, don't forget Wolverine was in the X-Men for over 10 years before he finally got a solo book. So at least you got
that Frank Miller was 10 years now. My mother still had a bookstore when that Frank Miller.
No, remember, Wolverine first appeared in Giant Size X-Men, which was 75.
I know it was 76, okay.
70, the X-Men, the Wolverine miniseries with Claremont and Miller, that was like 82, 83. But then his ongoing book started in 86, 87. So, I mean, that's still a lot of time from first appearing in Giant Size, where you got to know the character a little bit and build up his popularity. Now they're just putting books out left and right and canceling them real quick without them finding an audience.
When you were at retail, didn't you say this, that Marvel's just throwing books out to keep other books off the shelves?
Yeah,
they've
always
sales because they flooded the market.
Yeah, they don't want DC to have a lot of shelf
space. And didn't they just say that Marvel was overshipping titles?
Yeah,
like,
double.
You would buy like 40 books and they send you 80.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, depending on the order. But even titles alone, Marvel is now double shipping.
DC's doing that same thing. One thing with too much pop culture, if you look down, look at like I said to Gary last week, somebody put out a Three Stooges book with 4 variant covers last week.
Yeah,
Who
like
the hell
why?
is buying Three Stooges?
Exactly. Like, what's the audience for that?
If you look at IDW and Dark Horse and how many books they have coming out,
yeah,
it's insane.
And this is what I was going to lead to. I mean, that guy, the retailer, this Dave Gabrielle saying diversity is not selling comics. I really think the main problem is there's an oversaturation of books and people have limited funds. And somebody
also nobody stands out, so you're not drawn to anyone. It's very homogeneous. It's almost homogeneous. You know, the characters might have different costumes, but their personas are so generic. Nobody stands out. So it's like, who do you spend money on?
I disagree, Pete. I think there's some really good comics.
Yeah, there are. There's a lot of good stuff out there. There really is. What little I've been reading lately, there is.
You guys aren't the general audience. You know what I'm saying? I'm looking at it from like a casual reader. You guys are much more seasoned and much.
Yeah, but I think Spider-Man is at the worst. Good. Slott's a decent writer. And Spidey. He does a good job on Spidey. What's his name? Jason Aaron's Thor has been terrific.
Yeah, that was outselling, even the female Thor was outselling regular Thor for a while.
Yeah, for a long time.
I think the sales have come
in the 70s. I was shocked.
So if it was outselling the male Thor for a period of time, how can it all of a sudden be the fault of changing Thor to a woman that books aren't selling?
Well, because it's not outselling anymore. It's dropped down. It's in the 30s, I think now. So it's like 30.
Yeah, but what? All of a sudden, people decided they hated women, they hated female Thor, and not going to buy it anymore.
No, but see, I think
same thing with Thor. I'm telling you, it's hard to sell a Thor. Like Captain America. Everybody thinks Captain America is Marvel's A-list, and I'm a Captain America fan. Captain America is a middle-of-the-road seller since 1970.
Yeah, it's a mix. If he was a wrestler, he'd be a mid-carder. The reason Captain America is popular now is because of the movies.
Maybe,
but
I mean,
Marvel took all their B-list material, the shit that they owned, because they had sold off the rights to all their A-list material to keep themselves from going bankrupt in the fucking 90s, and then they somehow miraculously took their B and C-list material and made, $100 million, multi-million-dollar movies, these billion-dollar movies. I mean, they made Ant-Man to a fucking $100 million success.
But I think the answer lies. But like you were saying, Pete, it's like what caused those 70,000 female Thor readers to become halved in a couple of years?
It can't be that all of a sudden a book with a female character with a female lead is selling like hotcakes, and then out of the blue, all of a sudden it's just like, oh, because she's a woman, people hate it and they stop buying it. No, that's not the reason.
No, but it seems like that's what this resales guy is saying. It's because of that.
He can go fuck himself.
I know.
Just talk that.
I think the people jumped on that book because she was what's going on? Remember
exactly.
And all that? People like, what the heck's going on? It's female Thor. What is that? And we didn't know who she was, and what's the mystery, and how come Thor's not worthy anymore? And Jason Aaron writes a good book. I'm telling you, the God Killer Slayer, and I just read Unworthy Thor. The ending wasn't that great, but so that, and then Spider-Gwen. I don't know why that.
I still think it just comes down to the stories. At some point, maybe the writers get burnt out, and they can't keep up the momentum. They can't keep writing gripping stories, and they start to taper off.
Well, I think that happens to everyone. But I just think it's a combination of things. I think
the
it's
cycle is so fast now.
Yeah, but I think it's also the
definitely
reboots. I think it's the reboots, the events, the oversaturation. You just can't pin it down to one reason
I agree with
only.
you, Gary. That's what I was trying to say. It's definitely not one thing.
Yeah,
This
but
guy wants to simplify it.
Yes.
And just put the blame on either the artist. He wants to put the blame on the artist or the aspect of diversity, and that's just bullshit. That's just a cheap cop out
yes,
to the larger problem at hand.
No, but I do think there's something like, I mean, if you're a Marvel fan, you're an Iron Man fan. All of a sudden, Tony Stark is dead, and you've got two Iron Men. One's Doctor Doom, one's 15-year-old Blackbird you never heard of. You're gonna say, "Now I'm staying home this week. I'll come back when my guy comes back."
Yeah, because they're
yes,
relying
that
on
is
gimmicks.
true. But you
They're
can't.
relying on gimmicks. It's a gimmick. They're not relying on good storytelling. They just going for cheap shock. Okay, we'll make a villain. Making Doctor Doom Iron Man is about as shocking as making Dr. Ock Spider-Man.
Right, they are doing that. They are repeating that cycle.
How soon before the Joker starts wearing Batman's costume and masquerading as him?
Right, but now don't you think
they
that?
have Two-Face as the protector of Gotham 1 year later.
But don't you think though that it's like you said, it's a gimmick? But in years past, people have always bought the book, no matter what gimmicks popped up. You know, Tony Stark's an alcoholic. Tony Stark's now sober. He's this. His armor's
Rhodes.
against him. Rodney Rhodes is now Iron Man. People stuck with the title, but now people are dropping books left and right. Is it the economy? Is it?
Don't you think it ties back into what we were talking about in the previous podcast? Continuity. You kept coming back to the book again and again because what happened from week to week mattered. That doesn't happen anymore. What happens from month to month, the book could be completely changed by next month of whatever title you're reading.
Exactly.
You're loving what's going on, and there's some arbitrary fucking executive decision made because they want to get a spike in sales or whatever the reason is, and you come back to a book and it's just like, wait, what? What just happened here?
Right,
I
correct.
mean, the change is that radical, Pete. Like, if you do, but the point is, like, the events is like, okay, well, we have to go, like, to me, it's already for the Secret Empire title. Like, everybody's revving up the Secret Empire. It almost feels like everything else before it starts doesn't matter from here now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that's the same with every fucking event. Every event that comes along is like, whoa, whatever happened before, screw it.
Well,
No, not that it doesn't matter in terms of it's not going to roll over. It's like, well, why should I bother buying February, March, and April when May 1st is when the real thing's going to start?
Right.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
But again, it's a disrespect to the people who pay, to the comic buyers that pay their money weekly, or however often they buy comics, bi-weekly, monthly, whatever. And it's just like, oh, well, we don't give a fuck how much time and money you invested in this story. We're going to go this way now. So everything you enjoyed before is done.
We're going back to those two.
If you did that with novels, there'd be no novels. There'd be no novelists if they did that. Every time you got a book, it was completely different.
But I want to go back to another point I want to make. Those two reboots. Secret War happened. Secret War was a good event, and a lot of the miniseries were really good. But, like, what was the fallout? Like I told Gary, I don't know what I know, right? I have 20-something years of, 25, 30 years of Marvel knowledge. They never told me, remember, like, after Christ on Infinite Earth, they had the book, George Perez, that beautiful painted book, The History of the DCU?
Yes. Yeah.
Like, I don't know what's still in jeopardy. Like, I was just shocked to learn that, Captain America's a Hydra guy, and he still went to Dimension Z. Like, why would he need to go to Dimension Z when, it's crazy? So it's, and, so it's like, I don't know what's, okay, here's the point. Clint Barton, Hawkeye, is all upset that he killed Bruce Banner. And he's talking about, I killed my friend. In my history of all reading comics, Bruce Banner and Clint Barton were never friends.
I know.
Right.
So were they friends and stuff like that? I'm like, what's still in continuity? and I don't think they made a point to do it. But I think there was a book. I think they came out with a book, or they're coming out with a book. It's a timeline. I don't know if I bought it, but I just feel like I don't know. Like when you said they changed stuff, I don't know. Is that supposed to be a real change, or is that they just ignoring history?
They just ignore. Well, it was with the Casada was the one that ushered in that era of continuity doesn't matter, right?
Yeah, I think he did say stuff like that. Yeah.
His excuse was that the archive of issues of comics that existed was too dense for new readers to get into, which I thought was complete bullshit. I thought that was complete bullshit. When somebody becomes a fan of an old metal band like Metallica or Aerosmith who just came out with a new record, and this is some 15-year-old kid, 16-year-old kid, they never heard of these particular groups before. A new song by Metallica, for example, grabs this kid's attention. That kid is going to deep dive like crazy through YouTube or iTunes or whatever and grab.
I think that's apples and oranges. Listening to an old album from a heavy metal band is different than trying to catch up on 50 years of continuity of monthly storylines over 50 years. I think that's different. I kind of see what Casada was saying, and
I don't think so.
And it's true. I think it's true to a point.
Movies. I think it's the same thing with movies, with novels, with anything that's continuous. If you get into something at a certain point, you want to go, and you know that there's previous material by the same artist that you now like, or the same character, or the same band, or the same filmmaker. You're going to go and look for their older stuff. Everybody does it.
Oh, I think that's true, but I think when you're talking about stories, it's different than music, and I kind of see Casada's point because he brought aboard Bendis, and Bendis was more story driven than continuity driven with his stories, and I could see that, but but it's like I still think it's different. I think if you pick up a Spider-Man number 700, you're gonna go what the I think a lot of people nowadays just aren't going to go and delve into like 699. Back issues. I mean, they may pick up a few trades.
That is a lot, but
they may pick up a few trades of maybe of a character they heard of, like Spider-Man versus Doc Ock.
Normies to stay out. If they're not going to go back and buy 699 back issues, to hell with them.
There you go.
But I mean, even with all the ways you could acquire back issues, I don't think digital and whatnot trades. I don't think it's there.
By what we've been discussing over the last 20 minutes or so, we're pretty much showing that the reverse doesn't work either. By just destroying continuity month to month and just doing new shit willy-nilly every 1 to 3 months, that's not helping sales either.
Oh, of course. I think that's called event fee.
The room is that $3.99 you get 20 pages.
Yeah. Well, I stopped buying comics when it went to $2.99. I was like, fuck this shit. Because I used to go and buy 10 to 15 titles sometimes. I would make a pilgrimage to St. Mark's Comics and happily leave with a bulging paperback filled with books, bagged and boarded, ready to go. And then as they kept going up, my purchases got smaller and smaller, and I became more particular as to what I picked up, stuff that was really holding my attention, whether it was X-Men or Daredevil or Batman or whatever. And eventually, as the prices went up, I bought less and less. I switched to just getting them digitally, and now I can get comics anywhere I want digitally for free, and I don't even bother doing that because I just don't care anymore. Unless it's something unique like Injustice: Gods Among Us, or when Matt Wagner comes out with Mage 3, I just don't care because I know that whatever I read is going to be irrelevant a couple of months later.
I don't know. I just feel like sometimes I finish a book and I'm just like, that's it.
Well, sometimes I think they do that because then they have to, because they're gearing up towards an event, so they have to wrap up storylines a lot faster than I think they would like to.
Yeah, but I think it came out with what? Like 5 cents a page or something like I don't know. But I've been telling Gary, I'm thinking of dropping floppies altogether and just sticking to trades because
the graphic trades. Yeah. But the trades, I heard from what I read over the years, the trades have always sold way better than the singles.
Really, because I look at that New York Times one when they had the New York Times one. It's just like that's it. That's all they're selling. No, I expected. It sells great in trades, and I expected to see something like 200,000 trades.
Well, I remember when comics used to sell, 100,000. The shittiest book sold like 100,000 units in the 90s or something like that.
The X-Men, the X-Men were famously canceled. The original X-Men were famously canceled for selling 750,000 copies a month.
Oh my God! could you
Well, not
imagine?
that high. Not that high,
What?
but it was just...
Remember, 74?
Oh, the original team, the original team from the 60s, they were selling 250,000, 300,000, which is still damn good. Better than today. But I think a lot of it still really has to do...
Spidey was selling like in 1975.
1975. Well, you know what's weird? Comics went down in the 70s, but they were still... Spider-Man was still selling 300 to 400,000.
Oh, I think it was more than that.
But that was, sales
Also,
went down
that's
from the
when you could
60s.
that's when you could buy a comic anywhere, like literally anywhere anywhere where a paper product was sold, magazines,
Right.
Candy
novels.
stores.
Candy
But
stores.
Pat-
You could buy a Spider-Man. And it almost compelled you to buy. You could literally walk by one of those little news kiosks,
Yep.
and those colorful covers just
I
jumped
used
out
to
at
love-
you.
But-
I used to love newsstands.
But,
Yeah.
you could buy it anywhere, but people weren't buying them. Pat, remember in the 70s, even with the sales went down, and Marvel was ready to close up shop in 77, 78.
Right.
And if it wasn't for the Star Wars license, Marvel would have went out of business in 78, 79. They're saying Star Wars is what really saved Marvel, because even though a Spider-Man book may have dropped,
Machine Man. Let's be straight.
yeah, right. I mean, even though sales had dropped from, let's say, 500,000 to 300,000 in the 70s, to them that was a big deal. Losing 200,000 readers a month.
I wonder now what's compelling the dedicated reader to keep coming back. Because I have a friend of mine who was a die. I mean, this guy easily spent $40 to $50 every Wednesday without fail. And I kept telling him, I was like, when I started dropping out of buying comics and my readership started to decline week to week, I kept telling him, I was like, I'm out. And he was like, I can't never see myself not buying comics. Now, 3 years later, he doesn't buy anything.
At all.
That's
That he doesn't even buy trades?
Nothing. He says that he's so. And this is a friend. He's in our age range, so he's in his early 40s. He's been buying comics religiously since he was a kid, and up until roughly 3 years ago, he was still dropping, like I said, $40 to $50 every Wednesday. It's like, oh, Wednesday's here, I got to go get my comics. And he was just getting more and more disappointed with the retcons and irrelevant costume changes and all the other bullshit that we're all sick of. The mega events like, oh, in order to read this story, I have to buy 15 other titles tied in.
I swore off events after the Siege, which was a piece of shit. Probably the couple before that were piece of shits. I swore off events, and I've been good. I've not been buying into them. But now,
I haven't read any of them since
when?
Since what was the one after the Siege? Dark something or other? Dark Avengers?
No, Dark Reign was before Siege.
Okay, so
It was
I
Secret,
forget.
it was Secret Invasion. That led into Norman Osborn killed. Norman Osborn saved the world, so he got in charge of everything. And then Siege ended Dark Reign.
Oh, I remember what was the last thing I was tapped into. It was the Avengers. That guy, Jonathan.
Kind of thing.
Yeah, no, the Jonathan something or other. I can't remember. He was the hot shit for a minute, and he made Avengers.
Oh, Hickman, yeah.
Hickman, yeah, and he made Avengers more cosmic oriented, and he introduced those godlike characters, and then that was going to eventually tie into Secret Wars, and I just couldn't be bothered. I was so bored.
The thing about Hickman is Hickman's great, but it only takes him about 4,000 issues to get there.
Yeah, that is true.
I think that's what it was. I think the Avengers thing was just going on and on.
I'm with you, Pete, because he didn't just have one book, Avengers. He had like 3 Avengers books going on at one time, leading up to this. And then, honestly, I believe, I thought it was good.
Hello?
I'm back. I gotta take my second hit of Master.
Figures.
Nice.
All right. I totally forgot what you were talking about, Pat, when you got cut off.
I was thinking today, like, maybe we could do, like, in future, talking about how to get kids into comics, because I personally have created more fanboys and a fanboy. You know, like giving them comics when they're kids, and I just bring my college buddy. I buy Moon Girl Devil Dinosaur for his little girl, 2nd grade. He loves it. He says it's great, so much fun. But they, you know, if you give a kid a comic, they love it. But the thing is, what parent is going to go into a comic book store? And Gary's store used to be geared towards kids, and spend $12 on 60 pages.
Yeah, I know. That's why guys like Diary of a Wimpy Kid or Raina Telgemeier, you know, you get their $10 graphic novels and it's 300 pages, and it sells millions of, you know, I think 500,000 books in print.
Years ago, I'm saying this years ago, Floppy's got to die. You got to go to a trade format.
Right, it's more cost effective, and if it's cheaper, then people will take a chance on it because they could spend a bit more money and get a video game or a DVD or a Blu-ray and get more, and there's less work involved. With a comic, they have to read and use their brain. With the other things, all you got to do is turn it on. With a video game, you use your fingers. With a movie, you just sit there and stare at it.
Right, but I think, you know, it's like, Pat, you brought up that you were shocked by the sales of graphic novels and trades, but those kind of keep the floppies afloat, and I think you need to keep floppies afloat now as just public awareness to the IP properties for movies, maybe?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I mean, but then you look at it, the sales, and you think, like, say, you're selling 30,000 copies for $4 a book. That's a nice chunk of change.
Well, you think you pay the artist, the writer, the printer, the letterer.
Yeah. All those people. Oh, by the way, we're talking about Marvel and DC now. Now imagine all those other companies that don't sell anywhere near it. I mean, who sells that much? The Walking Dead and what? Saga still?
Yeah, Saga still sells.
But I mean, how many other? I was talking to Fred Van Lente one time, and I said, I was looking at the thing. I said 7,000 copies a month. How can you make money on 7,000 copies a month? And you looked at me and said, you can't.
Yeah. A lot of them you just can't. You're just hoping for a back end deal, or like we talked about, Pat. Just like hopefully you're married to a spouse that has a good job and health benefits, and while you do your work, your spouse does something else. That.
I wonder how long before you get that Patreon thing going with some of these artists.
What's that?
Patreon is like a lot of YouTubers have Patreon. Like,
Patreon. Oh, okay, right. Like you get somebody.
Maybe like when you think about it, patronage has been a big part of artistry since forever.
Since the beginning of art.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know if we work with that. But I was thinking, one of the things I wanted to bring up, and I've been thinking this a while, how much do Marvel's bigger titles subsidize books like Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur? That shit sells like crap. It's a fun book, and my buddy says his daughter loves it, but it's selling. I don't know what it's selling.
It's selling terribly, but I think it's always rumors that it's getting canceled, but it's always still hanging on.
I'm thinking they're not going to sell. They're not going to cancel the Little Black Girl book because the Little Black Girl book, and you vicious racist just canceled this fun out of the box comic.
Well, I don't know. I've been reading on Bleeding Cool and others that Moon Girl sells crap, and it's survived 2 cancellations already for whatever reason, because supposedly it does well in trade to keep the book afloat. Whether or not that's true, who knows? But maybe you're right.
Even Miles and Carmella, Miss Marvel and Ultimate Spidey, right? They get raved about. They sell 30,000 copies a month, which is good enough. You know what I mean? But Captain Marvel, she's not selling enough to stay afloat. And is she getting subsidized because she's, she's everything that feminism has been asking for?
Yeah. And you're saying if the big characters subsidize, but then if digital and trades are supposed to subsidize these main floppy books which don't sell, why are they still being canceled? I mean, at some point.
But not only that, if those sales were so good, wouldn't they be bragging about it? Because nobody loves to brag on a corporation.
Yes, exactly. But you figure at some point, you are going to make your money back on a book, and so everything else after that is gravy.
I'm worried about in those sales somehow the creators get ripped off. Because again, I asked a lot of creators, and I asked them, what are they selling in digital, and they don't know.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you don't know how much your comics is selling? Is that like a little scary?
Yeah, it is. I mean, Marvel just puts out a press release saying digital does well, but they don't give out numbers. And they don't even announce books being canceled anymore. They just stop doing solicitations in Diamond.
What is, and again, I want to know what does that mean? What does selling well digital mean? Does that mean selling, 500,000 copies or 50,000 copies or, whatever?
Yeah, I know. And they just won't say anything, so... I mean, again, but if all these diversity books are getting canceled, then you can't say that digital is doing well for them.
Yeah, but like when you say Patsy Walker Hellcat, I think where Patsy Walker Hellcat, she's not really like who we got diversity? We got Patsy Walker Hellcat, we got Squirrel Girl, we got Gamora, and you figure, okay, let's put a Gamora book out because this galaxy was big and it's a female title. Boom. You got Patsy Walker Hellcat, okay, nobody really cares about how long she's done. Scarlet Witch, let's put her out, she had the movie, didn't work. But I'm talking about, I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to say.
I know, it just seems very...
It just seems like, when I think of the diversity books, I think that you're right.
The only thing we've proven is that we don't know shit.
Yeah,
neither do the executives.
You know what's...
but neither do the guys that are running the shit, that are running the industry. They don't know what the fuck works either. It changes from...
If they knew what it works, Spider-Man
they would
sell
still
a million copies.
Right. Oh, wait, hold on.
Not sell Spider-Man.
What Gary said a little while ago is true. It's there are so many factors as to why the industry sales from the big two have dropped so into such a pitiful range that you can't narrow it down to one thing, which most people will do online because the average person just wants a real simple, quick answer so they can move on.
Yes,
and there isn't one for something as complex as this particular topic.
Right. I think, what is it? I remember Jim Salicrup said in an interview years ago, he says, comics will never be big in America like movies or music because it's too fractured. There's too many books, there's too many companies, there's too many characters, and I totally see his point, and I think the same holds true for why books are dropping. There's just too many reasons to list. Like you said, Pete, you can't say one thing and then move on to the next thing to shake a stick at.
There's also a bit more, there's more effort involved, arguably, to get someone into comics and to stay a comics fan because your resources are limited. The information, I guess now you could get, comic information online maybe easier than when you had to go hunt around for Wizard Magazine. But then again, Wizard Magazine was sold everywhere where there were magazines.
Right. You know what's funny? That's what the sales guy at Marvel was saying. He says back in the day when there was a Wizard, you could promote artists, writers, and there was an outlet for people to find out who was the hot artist of the month. Now that there isn't that anymore...
I used to think Wizard was the biggest piece of shit out there. And all those artists they promoted sucked.
Yeah, me too, but it worked. But see, I don't understand. All right, Wizard is no longer around, but you have the internet. You have TV. You have Marvel's now said they're going to put commercials before movies now for their books. Is it too little too late, or will that really help? But it just seems like you don't need a magazine anymore to hype an artist when you got an app, you got the web, you got TV, you got Netflix.
I kept telling a friend of mine, the guy I mentioned that used to buy comics religiously every week, I said years ago, where we would always have, very similar to the conversations we have on the podcast, he and I would get on the phone and just start yammering on for like an hour or more about comics and the industry and the creative aspect, the business aspect, so on and so forth, and wondering where it was going to go. And I did, and I can get him to vouch for it. I kept saying, the movies and the TV shows are going to become the new comics. That's where that's where all the creative shit is going. I totally see a day when comics just disappear to the or shrinks to the point where people forget they exist because and all the focus goes on the movies and the TV aspect.
I remember
and the
people
video
were
games.
saying that, years ago. They think, like, why does Disney really need to keep the comic division going when they could just keep putting out movies, TV, and cartoons to keep the IPs going?
They really don't. They can get more bang for their buck by putting out a video game connected to a comic character or some cool. They can make one commercial and blast it all over the place. They're Disney. Who's going to refuse their business? They have all the money in the world.
Yeah,
and they have most of the. They own most of pop culture right now.
Yes,
It's insane.
it is.
Princesses, Marvel Comics, and Star Wars.
And
Star Wars.
the Muppets.
It's like it should be a congressional hearing and have to break it up.
That's another thing. Look at the sales of the first Star Wars issues. They were like well over 100,000, 125,
Yes.
150. Now they're down to like what? Middling figures of whatever.
I'm looking at January.
Where did all those fans go? But
Yeah,
my
I'm
thing
looking at
is,
January. Star Wars at 11. It's selling 72,000 copies.
all right, so it went down like 50,000 copies. That's nowadays that's a lot, but 70,000 copies is still pretty good. But that's again,
Walking Dead is selling 85,000 copies.
but that's a book, a brand that has like 40 years of fandom behind it, and everybody who practically draws comics has seen Star Wars or
You know what
is
I was
involved
just
in it.
thinking is that one of the major drawbacks to pushing comics over all this other visual media that's out there is the lack of sound. Sound and emotion. Like in the movies and TV shows, you have actors putting their emotional spin on a character. You have the cool special effects, and you have the sound effects that add a whole other dimension. It's almost like trying to keep silent movies alive in today's day and age.
Yes,
That might be a good analogy.
that is a good analogy. But I mean, yeah, Marvel has tried the augmented reality with their
Mhm.
apps, and
The motion comics.
those comics where they sound in motion. But that's a good analogy to silent movies, like you said. But my thing is playing devil's advocate. If Disney could just put everything out now as a movie, TV, cartoon, or video game, why are they still trying to keep it? Why didn't they just cut their losses already? Why does it seem like they're trying to keep this afloat?
You don't, but again, we don't know that's not a long con, a game, something that they have planned for the future. Because if they just showed up, bought Marvel, and then just eliminated the comics division, there'd be a massive backlash that would affect their movies and their other products that tied in. So it's like keeping that around keeps that fan base happy and satiated.
Yeah, and I was wondering, like, on a Disney corporation, when they look at whatever's going on, just with the Marvel Comics division, I don't know what like, it's probably penny ante to them. So why they keep it going?
Yeah, that's what I mean. If it's penny ante and books aren't selling, why don't they just Disney has owned Marvel for what? How many years now? Five, six. All right, maybe in the past 2 years their books sales numbers have dropped, but I don't think Disney needed a reason to have numbers drop to cancel the whole line.
When they don't even care because they're making money they have the rights by buying Marvel to make any kind of movie property, TV property they want with those characters. So maybe it just doesn't matter to them if the books are around. The books are not biting into their profit margin more than likely.
But if you're losing money, on it, no matter how big a moneymaker Disney is, or any company, when a division is losing money, you either fix that division or you cut it off completely.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Disney, when they acquired Marvel, they had the rights to 5,000 IPs. Because Marvel always bragged that they had 5,000 characters. So if the books aren't selling, I mean, again, if the toys sell, if the bed sheets sell, if the movies are successful and the comics aren't, why then just still keep it afloat?
I have no idea. I couldn't tell you.
Maybe they're like one. Right, you said like the merchandise outsells it, right? The IP. So I mean, T-shirt sales probably outsell everything that Marvel does, right? But they're looking for the next Infinity Gauntlet, the next, great Dark Phoenix saga? Where's that going to come from? Is that going to come from the movies? Is that going to come from people like Dan Slott, Brian Michael Bendis?
That's a good point.
But again, Disney already has professional screenwriters, and you could also say Disney also has 60 years of backstory to turn into a movie already. And I'm sure there's a lot of screenwriters who don't read comics that are doing these movies. They just look at the source material when they need to.
I bet there are a lot of screenwriters that also read comics.
Yeah, exactly. But if you're talking about what's going to be the next event after Infinity Gauntlet, and if there's no comics, Jesus Christ! I mean, any writer could just Google anything on the internet and try to create a story out of like an event that already happened or something.
That's one of the things related kind of this. It's like you always see that. Where should I start? Anywhere. You think Spider-Man fans all started with Marvel Mystery?
Yeah,
16,
Amazing Fantasy 15. No, of course not. Yeah.
And like now, it's like there's never been a better time to get the backstory ever. You have people on YouTube telling it to you. You have wikis, and not just Wikipedia wikis. You got you've got Marvel wikis, you've got Spider-Man wikis, you've got X-Men wikis. Or you can post on a message board and say, "What's the deal with this Great Darkness saga?" And somebody will tell you.
Yeah, exactly. So, Pete, I do kind of agree with you that I think maybe it is a long game where maybe in 10 years there won't be a need for comic books.
I totally see it happen. I really see it happening. I said when people say, no, that'll never happen, like print will never die, and vinyl will never go away, and 8 tracks will be around forever. Where the fuck are they now? You know what I mean? It's like those are just people who are fans of a certain thing, and they've attached their identity to that particular thing and can't imagine it ever going away, because then that throws who they are into question. But from a business standpoint, if it continues to become a burden, to have the comic division, the comic book division as part of the company, it's going to go away.
I think anybody who looks at this has got to say it's going to go digital. It's sort of like it's
because it's more cost effective to do it digitally because you eliminate the print cost.
But only think about the fossils like us who watching $6 Million Man at that certain time. My nieces and nephews, they don't watch TV; they watch Netflix.
Well, they don't even bother with televisions for the most. According to the reports, they use their devices, whether it's a smartphone or a tablet.
Yeah.
So digital. I always felt digital was going to be the way of the future, which is why I do my comics on digital. It's like, for me, it's the purest form because it's the closest thing to getting the artist's actual files. And everything is going digital anyway. Money, music, everything's going digital. So why not comics?
Well, vinyl's coming back, because people figured out, something like this, what does that mean? That means
vinyl never fully went away.
Right.
It came back because of the nostalgics, but you don't really see people running out buying record players.
Actually, they're just happening.
Actually, I think there was an article just a couple of weeks ago that said vinyl had its best sales last year than in 20 years.
But that's the quality sound. But hipsters aren't people.
No, but you just can't say hipsters. I mean, I still have friends. I still have friends our age. I still have friends our age in the late 40s, early 50s that still have a stereo system and still buy stuff because they grew up with vinyl and they didn't want to, leave it.
About that thing and seeing that that Molly Hatch and Frank Frazetta cover.
But
exactly.
It's a niche thing. It's like people who collect stamps or butterflies or whatever. It's not a mainstream thing.
It's not a mainstream, but it's still here.
I think comics are only going to live digitally in the future because as technology progresses, it continues to be user friendly and more easy accessible. What's easier?
But wait a minute. No, but hold on. Let me get back to that in a minute. But here it is from The Guardian from January of this year. Sales of vinyl reached a 25-year high as consumers young and old have once again embraced physical formats of music. More than 3.2 million LPs were sold last year, a rise of 53% on last year and the highest number since 1991. So that means, 3.2 million, I don't know, it's 3.2 M, whatever the M means in the record business. But that means, and they're saying young and old, and they're scanning these things. So it may not be what it once was in the 70s, but it seems like it's still a viable option to a lot of consumers.
It's cyclical, right? All things are cyclical. Fashion, music, food. I don't know if food we consider something that's cyclical, but those sorts of trends. Everything comes, but whatever goes around comes around.
Yes, exactly. I mean,
it could be another another one of those things. It's back for a little while after, what'd you say, since 1991. So it got big again after like 15, 20 years, and it could just die away again.
True. I mean, I could see that, and maybe with comics it's different because it's something you have to continuously read every month if you want to, or read an arc, while a record is just one thing. Now, Pete, I want to answer your question about how you said, like, everything's going digital. But here's the thing: I could see that, but like you said, the digital offsets the cost of printing because it does cost a lot to print it in Canada, overseas.
It eliminates the cost
and the cost of paper. But now here's the thing: is that $3.99 that the consumer buys, out of that $3.99, it gets split up between artist, writer, letterer, blah blah blah, editor. That pays their bills. Do you think people are going to pay $3.99 for a digital download when there's no physical copy attached? So if you lower your price to 99 cents, which people have been bitching about for digital comics to be, how does that 99 cent get split up between all those people I mentioned who put together the book? So that means writers and artists are going to have to take less money to put out a book, which means they're not going to do that book for too long or be in comics for too long. And they're going to go...
I can't imagine an artist taking any less than they take now.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Like, so if they say, hey, you guys are going to take a pay cut because our comics are now 99 cents thanks to digital, an artist is going to go, fuck that, I'll just go elsewhere and to make money. Go into storyboards and movies or video games. You know what I'm saying? So I can't see everything going digital. I can't see going everything digital for the economics of the artist, of the creators, I should say, working on that book.
But you're talking about a corporation isn't thinking about them. They're thinking about them.
Yes, they're thinking about themselves. But what I mean is that if you keep getting turnover now, but now a lot of writers and artists, creators won't work for that corporation to do the characters they always wanted to do,
Correct.
Which then means...
Let me add an addendum to that, if that's the right word. A lot of writers and artists out here won't do it. But that's why Marvel gets work from people overseas where the American dollar carries a lot more weight. If they run short of American writers and creators, let's say they go digital, reduce the cost of the book, and there's less money to pay the creators here, they'll just go to another country and get it. Because there's no shortage of comic artists around the world. I have thousands of them on my Facebook list alone. Not that that's a benchmark for the world, but that just gives me a window into seeing that there are comic artists all over the planet who will work for fucking they will fucking jump off a roof to at the shot of working for Marvel or DC because they see them. They tell me all the time. Guys from India, guys from Japan, guys from Ireland. They see America is still the land of milk and honey to them. Mm-hmm. Regardless of what's going on in this day and age, they still see it as the promised land, and they'll jump at the fucking chance. And that's not even speculation. I mean, I've been told that these Brazilian artists, these Filipino artists, these Mexican artists, they will bust their ass just to be working for an American company.
It seems like when one of them gets in, it's like, hey, you got any friends? And then all of a sudden you got 7 artists from Costa Rica.
Right.
Yeah, well, because
yes.
These guys meet their deadlines for the most part. They meet their deadlines, and the level of work they put out, like as far as like let's say the amount of detail and the speed and accuracy, surpasses a lot of these American artists who just got fucking lazy. I hate to say it. Mm-hmm. A lot of these guys, when the artists were superstars, when they were being talked about, let's say 5-10 years ago, you had like when Ultimates was was all any. What was the guy who did Ultimates? I can't remember his freaking name. But,
Brian Hitch.
Brian Hitch.
Brian Hitch, and there was another one. There was another couple of guys. Basically, whoever Millar was dragging along with him became rock stars. They could only do one title a month, and then sometimes they were late. They were late. They were late more often than they should have been when comics were selling really short. Which we constantly go back to the old days of comics, but back in the day, when was a comic ever late? In the 70s, in the 80s.
Yeah, but if you go back and look at the style, there's so much more detail today.
Really?
Yeah, that's another thing. Is it more detailed?
I don't think so.
Fucking
Yeah, look at Captain America. Like Sal Buscema will have a panel would say Cap punching out somebody from Hydra, and there'll be nothing else in the thing. It'll just be Cap punching out with like a plain like white background or a yellow background.
I've seen artists on X-Men do that. Well, they'll do one page that has tons of panel work, tons of background work, and then when it gets to a heavy conversation, it's just talking heads because there's no fucking room for background because you need to slap those work things in there.
Exactly. And
what did I
go?
But I think there was a lot of detail in the 70s too. I mean, guys like Sal Buscema was fast. I think him and his brother did a lot of work. I think, a lot of John Byrne in the 80s when he was like starting to cut corners, then I saw less detail. But guys like Gene Colan, Neil Adams, I mean, those old professionals, they grew up having to put in detail. I mean, you could put in more detail now because it's digital, because you could take something like a stock photo and screw it up in Photoshop because of the filters and drop it in,
Or use that 3D modeling software that Joe Quesada used to brag about. I forget what it's called. Google SketchUp or something. But also on the other side of the detail argument, detail isn't always necessary. That isn't always what makes a page.
That's absolutely right.
Yeah. Sometimes it's too much. Sometimes detail is a detriment. Like I love Jeff Darrow, but I can't look at too many of his pages in a row without getting cockeyed because there's too much shit to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But he's amazing. I mean, he's amazing. Like you see his work on Hard Boiled that he did with
Miller.
It's stunning. It's mind numbing.
Also, that wasn't a monthly book though, so he had time to do that thing. But I agree with you. I see what you mean. I mean, like my art teacher used to say, if you don't have room to fit it in, don't. So it's like when you're working on a page,
It doesn't add. It sometimes less is more, which I'm a big proponent of.
Yeah.
I think just the right amount of lines and just the right amount of elements on a page to tell the story is all you need, and then it gives the brain something to play with. Because when you put in every freaking detail, the reader is just on autopilot. Their brain isn't engaged.
Right.
Only their eyes are.
Yeah.
There's a lot of guys in the industry, a lot of people say in the industry that are not good storytellers.
Most of them, I feel like that got kicked to the side in favor of splash pages.
Yes, I totally agree with you.
Absolutely, a lot of people complain about splash pages.
But you know what I
pages, and all of a sudden you got a splash page. So now you got 18 pages.
But you know what the real reason for that is? It isn't necessarily because the writer wanted splash pages. It's because, and this is from speaking to artists on the down low, like at conventions and shit, they pester the writers to throw in splash pages so that they can sell those for a couple $100 at the conventions.
Yeah. But if everything's going digital at some point,
that's not going to matter, right?
That's not going to matter anymore. Yeah.
I mean, that's always a niche market, but and I don't begrudge them at all.
No, not at all. Not at all.
But my favorite artist right now, David Ozdon. If you look at his work on Hawkeye or whatever else he did, you're talking about, he's detailed without being detailed.
Mm-hmm.
I love his art.
Yeah, he is. He understands mood. He understands mood and tone, and he's a good storyteller. Yeah.
I had an argument with an inker a couple of years ago about what actually is a detail, and he felt, and I was surprised to hear this from an inker because he felt those scratches that somebody like Finch or Jim Lee puts all over their characters are details, and I said they're just scribbles.
Yeah.
I said they're not defined. They're just lines.
Exactly.
or cross-hatching or just literally random scribbles. A lot of these artists just scatter lines all over their pages, and then people go, "Oh wow, it's so detailed." They say, "No, it's not. It's just dirty."
David Finch was
Exactly.
going back to superstar artists. He was a superstar artist for a while. He got really pushed by the industry, and I just kept putting my things on, right?
Yeah, I never was a big fan of his either.
I never understood it either. Some of his stuff I liked in the beginning, but then as he became popular and he got on more and more books, it was like everything looked the same.
Yeah, he was one of those guys. I go back to that image. He was a guy who was perfect, the '90s image, and I don't like.
I think he started at Image. I think he did start at Image before he became Marvel. Went to Marvel. I think he did do some stuff.
I think we should throw this in there. Whether or not the artist's style appeals to us or not, if they get popular and then you start seeing them everywhere, it's not their fault. It's Marvel or DC sucking them dry. Like when Jonathan Hickman got popular, and then he started showing up on this book, that book, and the other book, I knew it was the countdown had already started to the time where he was going to burn out and not be worth reading anymore, because they abuse these dudes. You know, they take them, instead of giving them one book to write amazingly well, because the guy's popular with Hulk or whatever the fuck he was working on, they put him on 3 and 4 books. You can't maintain that level of creativity and ingenuity writing that many books at once.
I can see that, but I mean, those guys, those guys looking for a paycheck too. They'll be like, "You got any more work for me?"
Sure, they are, but when you take on too much stuff, people get sick of you and your work suffers. It's the same thing with actors, you know what I mean? When you see an actor too much, not every movie is going to be great because they just taking paychecks, but they're putting out shit.
Yeah.
Look at Nicolas Cage.
I think Nicolas Cage is a special case because he's owes a lot of money, right?
Oh, he's not a special case. There's a great Nicolas Cage, Wesley Snipes, Steven Seagal, Dolph Lundgren. You know, all these guys just took whatever came their way to make that money, and they just eventually started doing clunker after clunker until they became video-on-demand actors.
Right, and I think what's his name from Breaking Bad, Bryan Cranston, even said that in an interview a year or two ago, where he was like, "Hey, I'm taking everything I can right now because I know it's not going to last." So, while he's been doing good stuff, though, I don't think the people are sick of him yet because he hasn't really put out a clunker. I think, when you start putting out crap,
he also hasn't been in anything that was amazing since Breaking Bad. He's been in middle of the road stuff. You know, he had a little part in Godzilla. He had a little part in this movie. He had, you know what I mean?
He was the lead in that Dalton Trumbo biopic, which it wasn't a big moneymaker, but it was nominated for awards. And he did LBJ on Broadway for a 6-month limited engagement. I mean, that's pretty impressive too. But I mean, I understand your point. He hasn't done anything really, as pop culture as Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
Water cooler talk.
He might never get another role as amazing.
Yeah, I think he's doing something on Amazon now, a TV series. Which again, it's Amazon TV. It's not.
He
cable.
is the voice of what's his name in the Power Rangers movie, and that's a great one.
Oh, that's hilarious.
How the hell did he get freaking Power Rangers?
Wait, he was the voice of something in the original Power Rangers TV series.
Oh, maybe that's.
He was one of the.
And also,
he was one of the villain voices because that was his first job. But that was also his first job, I think, to get into the biz.
Yeah, actors love doing voiceovers because they don't have to dress up. They can sit for easy money. It's all about their voice. They can go in a t-shirt and pajama pants if they want. They don't have to look any way. They don't have to be as scrutinized as publicly. You know what I mean? It's a lot easier. You see them all the time on podcasts, or hear them all the time on podcasts talking about how they love doing voice work.
Yeah, I read an article about the video game industry when it was just starting getting up. They couldn't get like anybody from Hollywood to really come over, but now it's like they're knocking down the doors. Hey, you got anything for me?
Yeah, because they know that because video games make millions of dollars, and at one point the video game industry was making more money than the film industry.
Yeah,
and
I think it's still
that was within the 21st century. I remember early 2000s they were articles that the film industry was suffering because ticket sales had just started to jump into the
Yes.
$10 or $12 range, and people stopped going as often, and video games were making like hundreds of millions of dollars. Like, it was just thriving with Call of Duty and Assassin's Creed and the Metal Gear games, and the
Batman Arkham Asylum.
oh yeah, I mean there's
What is that? The second one and the third one just like broke level. All their sales records. It's insane.
yeah, it's amazing, and there's as much effort into making a good video game as into making a good film, probably more so.
Yeah, it's just insane.
Because
Yes,
it's all-
yeah.
it's
Well,
so
same thing with
much work.
commercials, yeah. Now.
Yeah.
But that's interesting, the way will commercials still be around in like 25 years? The way people are watching TV now, you don't really need commercials anymore.
Well, the future of commercials they're experimenting with on the internet, and they're trying because everybody's internet traffic is being monitored. They're trying to gear these 10-second commercials specifically to you to make like what was there was a movie, I think it was a Tom Cruise movie. Was it oh frack, it's the Minority Report, I think it's where he's running through the mall, he's being chased, and as he's running by these holographic billboards, they're addressing him directly. Like the scanners read his eyes, the system accesses his biometrics, and then the ad instantly addresses him. I think that's the future of ads.
There's this company I was reading about. I'm sure there's like a dozen of them. They analyze the metrics on how long your smartphones, how long you spend when you're in the mall, how long you spend in each store,
Sure.
and then they're going to target for you. And I think about them all the time, advertising. I'm like, with ad blocks and DVRs, and like nobody, like I said, like my nieces and nephews, they watch Netflix, and then a lot of people, like my cousin she's a big American Idol fan. She says I DVR it, and I just go through all the bull crap, and I just hear all the singing. It's like 12 minutes long.
Yeah, that's why they've had to migrate their commercials into embedding them in YouTube and forcing you to watch at least 4 seconds of commercial, which I never pay attention to.
Actually, I had my ad block off the other day, and then I was like, how fucking long is this commercial for freaking YouTube? And then it was an unskippable one.
Yeah, and actually,
it was like a 2-minute commercial.
And actually,
like
YouTube
forever.
is doing that. YouTube is getting rid of that. Skip this ad in 4 or 5 seconds. They're going to do unskippable ads permanently from now on, for them to make more revenue. So that means
I
YouTube.
Ad block off to support these guys.
I don't know that you're ever going to see the death of advertising, because as long as products are being made, there has to be a way to get them out there to the public. There has to be a way to let the public know they exist.
Yep.
So how do you allow that industry to evaporate? You can't. Nobody's going to let it happen.
Yeah, you can't. But like we said, there's ad blocker. There's other things, and I can't see people putting up with ads. Well, I guess before movies, maybe, because you're kind of trapped in the theater because you paid your ticket to see it. But I can't see them putting
radio ads. Remember that?
Yeah, that's true. But I can't see them putting in more ads into movies themselves or having more sponsors. I think there would be a backlash against that.
Already movies. I mean, like, remember we get there early. You sit through half an hour commercial.
Right. I think that's probably going to be the way to go, because you paid your ticket. You're going to stay there no matter what. But I can't see them putting them in the actual movies any more than blatant product placement we see now.
With movies, what we do now is if the movie starts at 7, we usually wander in like 7:15, so that way you can avoid 15 minutes of commercials.
Yeah.
Because getting there for the trailer doesn't matter, because the trailers are all over the fucking internet anyway.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
But by the time I get there, maybe one trailer I haven't seen on the net.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter exactly. And if you haven't, you say, "Oh, I want to see that trailer I just missed." You can YouTube it in a second.
Also, going back to our sort of geek pop culture, like there are so many sites that want to promote your whatever. You know what I mean? If Marvel and DC put out a movie, it's going to be all over the web. It's going to be every comic site. It's going to all these YouTubers say, break it down. We're going to analyze what's the latest trailer that came out. Oh, Spider-Man: Homecoming. Really? You have to analyze the Spider-Man?
Oh my God, that's the new. Yeah, there's so many video blogs out of people analyzing a trailer. It's like, who gives a fuck?
I know. I don't get it. Who's watching that?
Well, they're just trying to generate.
Maybe it's the Easter eggs for the normies. Maybe I don't know. Maybe that's it.
I don't know. I think it's just. I think it appeals to the detail freaks, the guys who wanna, know the guys who want to know, like, Captain Kirk's fucking room number on the Enterprise.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that want to see a trailer. I mean, I saw Kevin Smith and Mark Bernardin started reviewing trailers, and I was like, oh, come on, you're desperate for material if you're doing this bullshit.
Yeah, well, that's content. Content is king now. It's like you keep putting out content, you brand yourself, and you can make money. Like you were saying, who's analyzing these trailers? It's people that want to work in the industry, so they're going to put in their time doing them, analyzing the stuff themselves on YouTube, and hopefully they get noticed and picked up by a conglomerate, and they get to work for them.
Because they're saying, like, the new phrase, the more current phrasing in Hollywood is whether or not an actor or director is relevant, or whether a TV show is relevant, as opposed to whether or not it's more important to be relevant than to have high ratings, because ratings don't matter anymore, because it's so fractured due to streaming and DVR and binge watching and so on. It doesn't matter.
And everybody puts up their stuff on demand free. Like if you're CBS, NBC, they all. I'm like, why don't I can just watch it on demand? Why would I?
Right.
Why would I have to be there?
And then more and more people are getting Kodi boxes, or they've got Roku's or DVRs, or whatever, because
Apple TV.
Who the fuck really gives a shit about commercials? And the only time anybody cares about commercials is during the Super Bowl, because you get the real crazy, innovative ones.
Yeah,
exactly. Oh wait, did someone try? Oh, Mike Delapine's trying to call in. I guess.
Oh, don't let him in.
Well, I'm gonna say we've been doing this now for an hour 42. I would like to keep these things short. So maybe we'll just end here, and we'll say, Mike, just like we were saying, next week, this Friday, let's talk about it. Is there too much pop culture in the world now? Do the nerds finally won, but now be careful what you wish for. So we'll save that for Friday. That way we can think about it.
Yeah. Well, I guess they say too much of anything is bad.
Yeah.
Too much of a good thing becomes bad. I mean, that's like too much eating out.
Too much too candy, too much ice cream, yeah.
Right. In all things in moderation, and because of the internet, which never goes off, and now TV never goes off because of cable.
Because of technology,
right. And the news never goes off, and these people all these entities are fighting for your attention so they can make sales and make ad revenue. They're now we're inundated by frivolous shit. I mean, the fucking people that have millions of YouTube fans, and all they do is open up toys out of their boxes and film it.
Jesus Christ, yeah. That I just don't understand. But let's save that for Friday, because we're starting to delve into it. We're bringing up good points, and we should save them for Friday. So let me call Mike. But let's end it now. I'm gonna have to edit 5 minutes out of this thing because of Patrick. Rat fuck with his goddamn technical.
Yeah, you should have it up by midnight.
Oh. Maybe, because either that or it goes up tomorrow night. Maybe I'll try to edit it now. But let's sign off, and we'll sign in on Friday, because we'll talk about pop culture in earnest on Friday. That we could do a 3.5 hour marathon on. Make sure I have a bottle of booze by my side for that one. So we're signing off. All right. Have a good night, everyone. Have a good week. Talk to you Friday. Late.
Bye-bye.
Bye. And